FPL Game Week 12, my top transfer targets. Today, we're going to do my usual 5 players to buy. We're going to talk about some of the highly owned assets in the game, how I feel about them at the moment, a few players that a lot of you are buying into your teams already this week that I would avoid buying in, and then we'll talk about a few differentials as well. What is up everyone, FPL Harry here and welcome back to another video. Today it is my top transfer targets, the evolution of my top 5 players to buy video that we used to do, and we are stepping it up now. Today, as always, we will have a look at some of the highly owned players in the game, how I feel about them. There have been some injuries in FPL this week. We'll talk about those to Erling Haaland, Matty Cash, and now to Dan Burn, which has just evolved that he is going to be out for a fair few number of weeks. We'll talk about some of the highly owned, highly transferred in players that you are buying that I think you should actually avoid. We'll do my usual 5 players to buy, and we'll now finish with a few differentials for those of you who like to go a little bit against the crowd. Before we do all of that, 1,000 likes on the video, subscribe if you are new around here, and let's dive in. Those obvious players that I think you should still be buying into your team. We have Son, we have Salah, we have Bukayo Saka as well. Bukayo Saka could be one of the top 5 players to buy because I think there are enough players playing FPL that don't own Bukayo Saka at the moment. But 8.6 million, Burnley at home this week. He is still definitely a player I want to have in my team that I don't own at the moment, that I definitely am trying to find a way to buy into my team, as I discussed in my transfer plans video from over the weekend. Ollie Watkins as well. Ollie Watkins, we've seen not perform from an output perspective so much over the past couple of games. However, the data is still really strong. Fulham at home in game week 12 and Bournemouth away in game week 14 as well. Still expect him to be one of the highest scoring forwards over the next few weeks. Erling Haaland, we have here, has been pictured back in training ahead of their Champions League game on Tuesday evening, I believe. So Erling Haaland is absolutely no doubt. I don't think that he's going to be available for that Chelsea game at the weekend. Pep said he might have a little bit of caution about whether he plays him in that Champions League game, but I still think either way he'll play against Chelsea. The final one is Kieran Trippier. Now, it does seem that Botman is going to be out for a fair few number of weeks more, and Dan Burn has just been confirmed by Eddie Howe in his pre-Champions League press conference that he has sustained an injury to the base of his spine, which sounds terrible, but he only sounds like he's going to be out for a couple of months. So hopefully it's nothing too serious and he will be back soon enough for Newcastle. But it does mean that for me, Trippier just becomes even more as the only real Newcastle defender that I want. Lascelles at 4 million does also continue to stake a claim. The issue is we just don't really have that much of a time frame on Botman. It just continues to be rolling, and then we don't get an update for a few weeks. And then he updates us again that it might be a little bit longer. I do like Lascelles at 4 million, but it does just remind me that these other options not being there. Trippier at 7 million. I just need to find a way into my team. If you've got him, absolutely do not go selling him now. The way he continues to get those 9 pointers, when a clean sheet comes in and he just gets maximum bonus points. As soon as he gets an assist, he just gets maximum bonus points as well. Definite one to keep buying if you don't own him already. Now, looking at 3 players that are very, very highly transferred in that I actually think we should be avoiding going into this week. The first one was on this list last week is Eddie Nketiah, and he did blank against Newcastle. So glad that I put him on the list of players to avoid last week, and he still remains as a player to avoid. But there is more a caveat with this one. I completely understand you buying Nketiah 5.5 million when the fixtures look like they do. Burnley away, Wolves at home, Brentford away, Luton away in their next 3. His away form generally for Arsenal is not nearly as good as his home form. So Burnley at home this week is definitely a fixture you can look to target, but afterwards there are some away fixtures which he might not do as well for. The reason there's a caveat about this and him being on this list is when Gabriel Jesus is going to be back. We don't know yet. At time of recording, he could be back in game week 14, 15, 16. Just always, if you're going to buy Nketiah, know what your transfer out route for him is. If we get Jesus back in game week 14 or 15, which is the plan at the moment, which is when he's rumoured to be back, how are you going to deal with that? Don't make a transfer that's going to cause you major issues further down the line with a player like Nketiah because of the price he's at. The next one up is Doku. Now, Doku was the man of the moment, 22 points for him in game week 11, 4 assists and 1 goal for him. But the upcoming fixtures for them are really difficult. Hence the reason people are considering selling the likes of Erling Haaland and Julian Alvarez as well, right? Chelsea, Spurs, Liverpool and Aston Villa all in the next 4. But also, these feel like Jack Grealish type of games. I'm not certain Doku starts even 2 of the next 4. He likes to play, well, Pep likes to play Jack Grealish in games where he wants a little bit more control. He plays Doku in games where he wants a one-on-one specialist who can run at defenders like he did against Bournemouth. But these feel like Jack Grealish games, so I'm not even certain he's going to start. And the final one is Callum Wilson. Isaac is likely to be out until after the international break, so you should get Bournemouth away in game week 12, which is a really nice fixture. However, game week 13 will come around, and FPL picks are not just for 1 week, they are for several weeks. So buying Wilson in for game week 12 might seem like a good idea, but when game week 13 comes around, game week 14 comes around, you might have a little bit of an issue of exactly what to do with him. And I think given his price, there are other assets, particularly one in this list, that I would have rather buy. So that forward transfer target that I would be looking at this week still remains Darwin Nunez. Now, game week 11, we saw Darwin Nunez return to the Darwin Nunez that we know and love a lot of the time, where he missed a massive chance from about 4 yards out. It was ruled out at the time for offside, but the more I look at the replay, the more I think that goal may as well have stood. So if you're a Salah captainer or you own Darwin Nunez, you can find yourself a little bit aggrieved that you didn't get the points in that game. But we continue to see Darwin Nunez highly involved in what Liverpool are doing. Yes, he misses some chances, but that means he is getting the chances every single time he is on the pitch. He continues to be very, very focal for what Liverpool are doing and when Liverpool want to go and score goals. The upcoming fixtures are nice. They play Brentford at home in game week 12. It is then City away, but City do leak goals, and Darwin Nunez, Chaos Darwin, continues to be involved in what Liverpool are doing. Then it is Fulham, Sheffield United and Crystal Palace in the 3 after that. So I do expect Darwin to continue to be in and around the points for Liverpool. If you are looking to make a potential transfer up front, there aren't that many that I would go and buy. Probably Darwin is the one that I would look at alongside Ollie Watkins, as we've already spoken about. Just the next 2 is Brentford at home, Manchester City away. May not look that ideal, but with the way Darwin plays, with the way Liverpool plays, if they're going to score, I expect him to be in and around the points. Next up is a player returning from injury who is a cheap midfielder who's suddenly going to enter the fold in the likes of Gordon, in the likes of Hwang Hee-chan, and that is Eze at Crystal Palace. Early on in the season, he was one of the most talked about assets, how he continued to outperform in terms of data, but not get the actual returns he wanted. He's only had 1 goal, 2 assists so far this season, but the underlying data puts him in the top 10 midfielders, even despite the games he missed so far this season. The next 4 fixtures for Crystal Palace as well continue to be fixtures that I think Eze and Crystal Palace will do well in. Everton, Luton, Bournemouth, the 3 green ones in the next 4. Him returning from injury is great news for Crystal Palace. He's on a lot of set pieces, free kicks, corners, and he's on penalties as well, right? So there are so many routes to points. If you have James Ward-Prowse, there are 2 midfielders in this list, but if you don't have any money to go up, Eze, for me, is the best cheap midfielder under 6.5 million. The other midfielder that you might consider is the West Ham option of Kudus, 6.5 million. Straight away, I'm going to hear comments of what do you think about Jared Bowen. For me, as a Jared Bowen, if I was buying a West Ham midfielder this game week, I would buy Kudus over Jared Bowen, and I would save the almost million now that you are saving on them. Eze has great short-term fixtures over the next 4. However, you probably get longer-term fixtures for the likes of Kudus, right? Look at those next fixtures. Only fixture in there that is a little bit more difficult is the Tottenham fixture, but there tends to be goals when West Ham play against Spurs. So not even that worried about that. 2 goals, 1 assist, and he's played 90 minutes in both of the last 2 West Ham games. Since he's come in, he's not come in and then taken off after 60 minutes. He is playing 90 minutes in both of them. The underlying data is a little bit low compared to maybe the attacking returns that he's got. He's averaging 0.3 expected returns per 90, which is a little bit low, but he is outperformed that and he is a flair player. And with those fixtures, I do expect West Ham to continue to create chances. And with the way Kudus is playing, I expect him to be involved again. And then we move into defence. The cheap defender that we've got under 5 million in here is 4.5 million Mitchell. He did score at the weekend, so shout at me for having a little bit of recency bias, but he is 4.5, Gahey is 4.6, and Anderson is all the way up at 5 million. Do not go and buy Anderson. For me, he's not worth the extra money. Mitchell just is the cheapest, which is why he's in there. Gahey is also a good option and does have a little bit of threat from set pieces. Crystal Palace are joint top for clean sheets so far this season with 5 million. If you went with Johnston in your Game Week 1 team and you still own him, you have done really, really well. They're expected to concede a goal every 70 minutes, which has been pretty good, but they have had a difficult start to the season. So with the next 4, I do think they will continue to do well. And Mitchell, he scored. He does have a little bit of attacking threat there. It is also worth bearing in mind, Game Week 13 is a fixture nightmare for a lot of us, particularly in defence. However, Mitchell has Luton away that week. If you have the likes of Dan Burn, you don't have a lot of money, Crystal Palace defenders should be top of your list. Now, if you do have a little bit more money spare in the bank, an Arsenal defender in Saiba should be a no-brainer. Ben White is a little bit more expensive, but I would go with Saiba. Gabriel is an absolutely fine buy, but if you have the money spare, I would definitely go with the solidity of Saiba, just because Gabriel did miss out the other week against Sheffield United. It is possible. I don't think it will happen, but if you don't have to take the risk on him and you can afford Saiba, just go and buy Saiba. The fixtures over the next 4 are really nice. Burnley at home this week feels like an absolute banker of a clean sheet for them. They've also got Wolves at home in there, Luton away as well. They are also, along with Crystal Palace, joined top 4 clean sheets so far this season with 5. But the underlying data for Arsenal is crazy good. 120 minutes per expected goal conceded so far this season is sensational. They are the second best defence in the league, only behind Manchester City so far this season. Feels like a no-brainer to have an Arsenal defender. If you can afford Saiba at 5.2 million, just go and get him. And then we finish with our top 3 differentials going into this week. The first one is a Manchester United asset. Luton at home in game week 12 is a great fixture, followed by Everton away. If anything good happens at Manchester United at the moment, Bruno Fernandes does seem to be involved. He is a little bit more expensive than I'd want to own him for, which is why he's not one of my main top 5 players to buy, and he's a punt, right? His ownership is very, very low. But the next 2, being on penalties, being on set pieces as well, he definitely could do well over this run if you want a bit of a differential. Next up is Edouard. If you're looking for a cheap forward at the moment, Edouard at Crystal Palace, like Eze, like Mitchell, could do really well. Everton at home, Luton away in the next 2, also West Ham and Bournemouth all in the next 4. 5.5 million playing up front for Palace. With Eze being back, this is only going to boost Edouard, right? Edouard's returns dried up almost identical time that Eze got injured. Eze being back will only be good for Edouard's returns. 5.5 million is a cheap punt that I really like for a few weeks. And the final one is a bit of a differential captaincy punt this week, and that is Ollie Watkins at home to Fulham. Fulham have leaked goals so far this season. They put up a good fight against Manchester United last week, but away from home, they've been pretty poor. And Ollie Watkins and Aston Villa have been very, very good at home this season. I expect after their result last weekend, they will want to bounce back. So I think there is not a standout captaincy option this week. Most people will default to Salah. Saka at home to Burnley. Some people might be on Son away to Wolves or even Haaland away to Chelsea. Because of the past 2 games, not many people will think about Watkins, but I think he could be a massive differential shout going into this week. So again, 5 players to buy video is being leveled up each week. We've had the highly owned assets that I still think we should be talking about. We've had some highly transferred in players that I think you should avoid. We've had our top 5 players to buy, and then we've had my top 3 game week 12 differentials. Hopefully this video is useful. It's more about a lot of the players in the game. Let me know what you think about this video style. It's going to be our one-stop shop, hopefully to do with what you want to do with your team going into the upcoming game week 12 this week, and we'll be back every single week as well. Thank you all so much for watching. 1,000 likes on the video is the aim. Subscribe if you are new around here, and I'll be back again very soon.